Welcome to The Rest is Giant Robots, a conversation through the careers of writer Simon Furman and artist Andrew Wildman. Recollections and revelations about the highs and the lows as creatives in comics, books, games, film and TV.
So please give a big round of applause as they come to the stage for The Rest is Giant Robots live at TF Nation. It's Mr. Andrew Wildman and Mr. Simon Furman.
Thank you very much for the amazing welcome, and I hope you're all enjoying the podcast.
How many people actually listen to the podcast?
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll ask this another way. How many people have not heard the podcast? Okay, so you know what your homework is.
I mean, just to introduce the podcast briefly, a while ago Andrew suggested the idea that we just talk about our careers, not just in Transformers, but in the comic book biz and other associated. We've both worked in TV animation, computer games. You do a lot of storyboarding.
Yeah, stuff, yeah. I draw stuff, he writes stuff, and we cover a lot of ground.
But our careers have intersected a lot over the years, and we also had our own company, still have our own company, Wildfurproductions. As I was telling the panel earlier today, on the Asians, we also, as Wildfur with Titan Books, we put in a proposal for the Transformers comic license back in 2005.
Yeah, that was news on the podcast. If you didn't hear that episode, that was probably the first time that we'd ever mentioned that in public, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, IDW obviously won the license, but we and together with Titan Books put together a very sort of cohesive and attractive proposal, and we could well have been in another sliding doors scenario, have been the publishers of Transformers comics. So it would have been a weird thing. And as I was saying also this morning, we're quite glad it didn't happen in some ways.
I think dodge a bullet was the phrase you used. Yeah. We dodged a bullet, yeah. I mean, it would have been amazing, but...
Yeah. But it would have been our careers from that point on. So, I don't think either of us, when we thought about it, were ready for that. But Wildfur Productions rolls on, and we thought about doing this podcast, which takes us roughly chronologically through our careers, but has become much more general than that, and is... I don't know how we sometimes we talk about movies we've seen. So
yeah, but it's relevant, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's so that's the whole point, really. We'll actually start the podcast in a minute. I don't know whether they're going to roll the kind of intro sequence, but that is the whole point of the podcast. So we do lots of stuff. So Simon writes his own books. I've done a couple of graphic novels. We've both worked in TV. We've both worked in games, etc., etc. As creatives, we've had a long career doing all sorts of things. Simon writing and me drawing. But all of the rest is giant robots.
It is, yeah.
Hence the title.
So, we're going to kick off our episode very shortly, and we're going to talk to each other as if, I'm sorry to say, you weren't there, but that's only because it's the sort of format we're sticking to for this. It's being recorded, and then we're going to hit a point where we ask you, the audience, to become participants in this latest episode and ask questions of us. Anything really. Yeah. It doesn't have to be Transformers even, just careers, about working in comics, how to work in comics, the highs and lows. Yeah. And that's what I think the podcast is mostly. It's everything. It's not just the high times, it's the very low times, because careers have their ups and downs, and ours certainly have. We've hit various points where things have hit the rocks a bit, but that we've sort of rallied and come back and ended up working together again.
Yeah. Shall we kick off? Not kick off as in start a fight, but shall we?
We should, yes.
Let's kick off.
Yeah, so have we got the intro music?
Have we?
See how well we're lined up for this? There should be an intro music bit somewhere.
No, okay, we haven't got that. So here we go then.
Yes.
What episode number are we on?
Well, we don't know which episode number this is going to be, do we?
Oh, don't we? It's not actually going to be the next one we do.
No, I don't think so. It could be, I suppose.
Shall we make up a number to put it in the diary? So,
yes, yeah.
Because the next one that we're supposed to be doing, so the one that we last recorded, which was last week or whatever, was 27, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next one will be 28.
Yeah.
But if Simon doesn't think it's going to be the next one, so we're going to record one.
Yes.
Shall we go with 29?
29. Let's go with 29.
Okay. Who's introducing, me or you? Is
you.
it my turn?
I think it's you. Or it will be for 29.
It will be for 29.
Yes. See, this is how it goes. This is how it goes. Okay, so you have to imagine the imaginary theme music is playing now.
Yeah. So that kind of conversation is the kind of conversation that we often have, sometimes before a record. Anyway, welcome to The Rest is Giant Robots, episode 29.
29.
Hooray! You can clap if you like. Right. So that is living proof that we are in front of a live audience, yeah?
Yeah, not just dubbed in later. But if the applause isn't effusive enough, we might have to just sort of amp it up a bit for the actual podcast.
Or we're going to get the sound of a Wembley crowd.
Yeah. Anyway, yes, I'm Simon Furman, and we've long ago stopped saying what we do because we figure if everybody's got to episode 28 or 29, they know what we do.
Yeah, I used to say, I'm Andrew Wildman, and I do this, blah, 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 and then Simon would say, blah, 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 blah. But, you know.
It was just wasting good podcast time.
It was, yeah, like we're doing now. So I'm Andrew Wildman, he's Simon Furman, and you knew that anyway. So
what are we going to talk about?
What are we going to do, Simon?
Yes, which is also how we often start off.
Yeah, no, you know what we're going to do.
We are. We're going to talk a little bit about the Skybound Kickstarter, since we were both involved with that. And you know, the legacy of the material in that Kickstarter, that it often stuns and amazes us still, that people are still wanting these stories, that there are some people who haven't read these stories, especially American audiences who haven't seen all the British stories. So, we're always amazed, and I mean, we both were involved in the podcast, and we'll tell you a bit about that in a minute, but I'm sure, as you all know, this podcast was for 4 bumper volumes of all the Marvel material, including... Kickstarter. For 4 volumes of this in various forms, one which laced the UK and the US material into the continuity that readers of the UK comic would know, and one that was just... all the American stuff and all the UK stuff.
Yeah.
And James Roberts was telling me today he went for the Unicron package or something, even though he's got them in every shape or form already. So
J.P. Bove said the same thing.
Yeah.
He said to me last night, he said, I swore to myself I would never buy yet another reprint of all the stuff I've already got. And then he said, and then I bought it.
So we both were approached by Skybound individually, and I don't think we even knew we'd both been approached by Skybound.
No. I've got a Flickr, by the way, that I'm in control with, because Simon just shirked the responsibility of having the Flickr to bring up slides. Yours is the first slide, isn't it?
Yes, well...
Shall I press it yet?
Go and click.
Shall I press it now?
Click away. And for the audio listeners to this episode, we're going to have to explain what's on screen, I guess.
Yeah. So when did you first get involved in the Kickstarter then?
Well, I was approached by a guy called Alex Antone, who is one of the Skybound editors. And first of all, I got very excited because I thought, he wants to talk to me about something. Maybe it's doing some work. But it was the Kickstarter, and I was asked to sign a bunch of book plates for one of the special editions. So there's yet another version which has co-signed book plates by me and Bob Buriansky. And I was happy to do that. And they also asked me to be a part of a Reddit AMA. which had me scurrying to the internet to find out what I'd agreed to do, because I had no idea what AMA stood for.
You just said yes.
Yeah.
And yet you could have found yourself in a dungeon.
Yes, it could have been something very strange, But thankfully it was just ask me anything, which I then qualified by saying almost anything.
Almost anything.
But yes.
Did you tell them what they couldn't ask?
No.
Okay.
I probably would have just, and in fact I did duck those questions.
Yes, yeah, fair enough.
But, and also just to generally help promote the Kickstarter. So that was my initial involvement. Yours?
Well, I'd heard from them a while back, well, I say a while back, when, I don't know, just over a year ago, but purely because they did a G.I. Joe Kickstarter, I think, didn't they? A huge G.I. Joe thing. So they asked me to do some artwork for some trading cards or something that was going to go with it. And I think I only did 2 characters. Zorana, are we allowed to mention G.I. Joe characters in a Transformers convention?
Of course.
Oh, okay. Oh, they have crossed over, haven't they?
Yes, several times.
Zorana and Mutt, I can't remember who the G.I. Joe character was. Anyway, so I'd already done those. And then when I heard the Transformers Kickstarter was happening, same company, I thought, oh, that's great, And then, so when they got in touch, I thought, well, that kind of makes sense, And what I thought was really good was that they kind of still remembered who we were, because their approach with the comics was like get fresh blood in, get new people in to create the Skybound comics, which is exactly how it should be. They were definitely doing their own thing. They weren't following on from IDW or anything, and certainly not carrying on, with people from our generation. But because it was reprints, then it did make sense to come back. So I think they asked Jeff to do some tech spec cards, didn't they?
Yep.
And me. Did they ask anyone else?
I don't know.
No, I think it was just the 2 of us. So they asked me to do. I'm going to press a button with one of my pictures now. Do you want to say anything about your picture before it goes?
No, we'll cycle back to that.
Oh, will we? So they asked me to do some illustrations for tech spec cards. So these were things that happened as part of the, what do they call it when they get to another?
Stretch goals.
Stretch goals, that's right, in the Kickstarter campaign. So they started off by asking me to do 2 characters, I think it was. I can't remember which 2 it was, but as you probably all know, the Kickstarter campaign for the Skybound stuff went absolutely mental. I mean, it was just getting so many people picking it up. So obviously, it would then get to the next stretch goal. So they'd ask me to do a couple more cars, and then it gets, break another one, and they get back in touch and say, "Oh, can you do a couple more?" So there was another lot. So that's however many that was in total.
13.
Well, you say that.
Or 14 maybe.
So where is it? So these are slightly out of order. Right, okay, so on there you can see Soundwave towards the end. I had a discussion with them because they were reprinting all the Marvel stuff. Did they want me to do Soundwave in purple or blue? Because I remember JP Beauvais having that conversation when we did Regeneration 1. His first question was, Soundwave, is that going to be blue or purple? Because for those of you who don't know, Soundwave is essentially blue, but for some reason, in the original US Marvel comics, they coloured in purple. Anyway, so they said, no, we'll go with blue because it's like the proper colour. But then there were a couple. How far have I got? No. So we've got Laserbeak on the end there. So I think Laserbeak and Soundwave, and then Jazz is in robot mode and car mode on there with Soundwave in between them. I think they did a lenticular, or they've done a couple of lenticulars, so they change as you move them. So I did those as well. So that was great. I shouldn't have, but I've actually got some prints with all these characters on if anyone wants to come and have a look at my table and have a look at those. So that was my involvement, really. It was just to do those tech spec cards that will be part of the campaign. Yeah.
Yeah, and my involvement continued. As I say, I did the Reddit AMA, and that was an interesting thing. I hadn't realised it was a text-led platform. I thought it was going to be questions coming in and I would be answering them to a screen, but an AMA is the whoever's running the AMA feeds questions from people into a text document that I am live updating. So it was the fastest my little two fingers, because I don't think I've ever graduated beyond two-finger typing, have gone in my life. And every now and then there was one where I just thought, that's three questions in one. I can't possibly answer that.
Can't answer three questions with two fingers.
No. Well, also I was trying to get through as many as possible in the time,
right.
and you know, because it's live for an hour, and you get about a 40-minute lead in to start going through, and there were a lot of questions, and so, but that time, that lead time gets eaten up in no time at all, and by the time we were into the live hour, oh, good grief, the pressure of keeping going. And when I think Alex was doing the feeding and invigilating, when he finally said, I think that's enough, I was like, yeah, damn right.
Smoke coming through your fingers.
But it was good. And, you know, again, the level of engagement was really huge in that Kickstarter and generally. And this gave us pause to reflect, I think, and we'll talk about this in a minute, of just the popularity and the longevity of those comics that we produced back in the day, thinking, well, that's a job of work, we've done it to the best of our abilities, but, you know, we'll probably never have to think of it again.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, Transformers was, you know, a four-issue limited series. The Kickstarter campaign was like over $4.5 million. What would you call it?
Total,
I don't know. Total of stuff. So it raised a huge amount of money. That must be the biggest. It is, isn't it? The biggest comics-based Kickstarter ever.
I think it beat G.I. Joe, which the previous one, which had been the biggest before that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was funded in something like 2.5 seconds or something. So, it was all very impressive. And as the stretch goals went on, I think they were getting increasingly desperate about what they could put as a stretch goal. Hence the tech spec that I did of me, which was one of the very last, I think, if you can click your buttons back to that. This was one of the last ones in the Kickstarter stretch goals, which...
what are the strengths? That's pretty low.
I think they got the appetite right.
Intelligence, humour.
Creativity's looking pretty low on that, actually.
Yeah, it's gone up and down. I know that typing, well, they've overestimated that, haven't they? I think you got 3 for typing, should be 2, 1 point for each finger.
My drawing one's right up there.
Yeah,
so.
Good job they didn't do one for me, otherwise we'd have got into a fight about that. Appetite. Math or maths?
Indeed.
Good, well done.
But it was great to be a part of it, and you know, it was great to, well, it wasn't great, but I had to literally sit and sign book plates that Bob had already done his signing of it, over 3,000 of those, which was, which you just have to go into a zone to do. You know, I think if you think about when you're on like your 10th, that you've got another sort of best part of 3,000 to go, it really wasn't a way to do it. So I just did increments of an hour here and an hour there signing. And I'd had training on this with the Dynamite trading cards, for which I signed something like 6,500 trading cards. And you know what size a trading card is. It was like every signature had to be condensed into the tiny bit of white space around, say, Nightbeat's legs. And
you've all got stuff signed by Simon. You've seen how he signs, haven't you? It's just like, so.
Yes. Yeah, it had to be a contained version of that signature.
I don't think it has a score for containment or whatever.
But yeah, so, but very nice to be involved, and as always, it put me in touch with Bob Budiansky, so we had a chat about that and a moan about having to sign 3,000 plus book plates. But again, it was nice to be a part of it, and it really made us think about, first of all, that there are readers in America or Transformers fans who have never read some or all of the UK stories.
Oh, there?
There must be. I mean, I don't, even the IDW collections of the UK material, I don't think got to the 5-page UK strips. I might be wrong, but that's something our audience can write in and tell us about.
Yeah, they can.
But I have a feeling they hadn't never seen the JP's colourised versions of the black and white 5 pages. So again, for some readers, it was their first chance to see all the UK material in situ.
Yeah.
And, it's just amazing that, we come here and people bring their copies, or they pick up a copy of these issues from best part of 40 years ago, and these stories are still going strong.
New slide.
Yeah, and obviously our careers are very intertwined on these stories. And, we started, Andrew's first work was for, I'm going to say, issue 198 of the UK.
Was it? Of the UK book?
Yes.
Yeah, I have no idea.
And that was the Christmas story that year. And if you've listened to the podcast, you will know we've already done this.
If you've listened to the podcast, you'll be surprised that we do a podcast.
But we have talked about Andrew's sort of debut on Transformers, and you've done covers before that, haven't you?
I think the first cover I did was a Soundwave cover, or it might have been RC, one of those two.
Yeah, you definitely did. During Space Pirates, there are some of your covers.
Oh, okay.
I think there's that one with RC's been shot, and the cover line was RC deceased. Guess who did the cover lines at that time?
Very good.
Yes. So, I think that was one of your first. But, so, as far as I was concerned, Andrew had proven himself on Transformers, and we just thought, great, it's time for some interior art. And it was one of those Christmas stories where I think I did the plot and Ian had written the story, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe.
We had Ian, who was the first Transformers editor, Ian Rimmer, and writer. He was our first guest on the podcast. That was episode 25, wasn't it?
Yeah. So. And the plan is to have more guests in coming episodes, and they won't necessarily be the same old guests. Like Ian, he hadn't really been interviewed, and yet he was really part of the whole creation of what Transformers UK became. It was when he took over as editor, and the design and content was sort of completely revamped from the first 28 issues or something, or 27 issues, that I think Transformers UK became what it is, with things like sound waves and other feature material. It became a very Transformer-centric thing. At that point. And Ian had some really interesting perspectives on those early days of Transformers UK and just sort of, how we approached it and how it was dealing with Hasbro in those days, because Ian did much of the original, he was the editor on it as opposed to me, who was just the assistant editor. And so, he did a lot of the interacting with Hasbro on that. And if you can check it out, it's a really interesting listen. And I think moving forwards, we're going to find some of these other people who maybe just you haven't heard as much from.
Yeah. And I think the other thing to remember, like you get a sense of it when you listen to us talking with Ian on the podcast. And there's been some photographs that have shown up recently from the old Marvel days. So, we've been around a long time. Probably most of you have met us and, kind of know what we've done to a certain degree. But for Ian, being the editor in the Marvel office, this is so long ago that he was literally herding a bunch of over-enthusiastic 20-somethings who were putting together comics in in England, and they never knew that, you know, Transformers would carry on as long as it did, or any of the other stuff, really. So it was a very different time, and there wasn't social media, so everything that everybody did was all like you were doing it on your own in a room, or just with the people you were working with. You had no idea what or, you know, how the outside world was receiving anything.
Some photos surfaced recently. One of the guys who worked at Marvel UK was called Steve Cook, and he just always had a camera with him. And he took some photos of the office that Ian was editor, I was assistant editor, Richard Starkings worked in office, John Tomlinson, and these old photos surfaced of the office at the time. And it can only be described as chaos. These desks are all overspilling with paper, and it looks anything like, other than like somewhere where proper weekly comics get produced. But
no, it was like one of those old kind of newspaper ball pens that you see in old movies, wasn't it? Just
yeah, but lots of people
probably smoking in the office as well, were you? Well, you probably weren't.
No, I don't think
allowed?
I don't think we smoked in the office. I mean, with artwork and things, even we might have think that was.
I originally trained as a graphic designer, in the graphic design studio I first worked in. We used to smoke in the studio, and this is pre-computer, so we weren't generating, you know, graphic design work and all that kind of stuff on computer. So you had photographs, you had to mark up board get your typesetting done somewhere else, you had to stick it all down with glue. And the glue that you stick it all down with was called cowgum, and it was petrol-based glue. And people used to smoke. And I did have one particular day where my artwork and my drawing board went up in flames. And you used to have to clean the excess glue off. When you'd stuck something on, obviously it would squirt out the edges a little bit, so you would clean it off with lighter fluid. And sometimes, you know, lighter fluid would go all over the place, and then your fag ash would drop on it, and then it goes up in flames. And this literally happened to me. I picked up like a big bunch of sort of paper towels, and I was trying to bat the flames out with the petrol-soaked rag, which is essentially what it was. And so I was going, and then that was going. It's just like this flaming rag. And I thought, what am I going to do with this? So I threw it in the bin. For some reason, that was my first reaction. Throw it in the bin. That's got more paper, petrol-soaked rags in it. Bin goes up in flames as well. Just like, how did we survive?
Yes. Well, you know, whenever I talk about the early days, especially those Marvel office days, it sounds like you're using flint tools. Because with colour, the only way really to do mechanical colour was to, you would get a colourist to do a colour rough of the page, so you knew what it was going to look like. And they, in turn, would mark up those colours in percentages of yellow, blue, and red, basically. Yeah. And then those percentages had to be on a sheet of acetate with the line key overlay, had to be painstakingly marked in with a pen. Yeah. That, again, people used to come out of the colour separation room slightly high from these pens, and it was so labour intensive.
If you're nozzing off, that's how boring a job it was to colour comics. Like, seriously. I mean, in America, those separated acetate sheets were done by little old ladies living in middle America somewhere. Just outworkers, it would be sent out to do and then come back again.
I think it's why, you know, American comics had so many of those colour wash holds on characters, because, you know, trying to do any background detail was just tiny marker pen work.
Yeah, I mean, the American Transformers, I'm pointing at that, that's no good for you, is it? The American Transformers books were a prime example of that, because those characters are so detailed and it's so specific as to where their colours would go, that Nel Yomtov, who was the colorist on the whole run of US Transformers books, I don't think I made it up, but in my mind, he was known as Knockout Nell, because when you had say some stuff in the background, you know, the foreground characters would be colored as they need to be coloured. Stuff in the background, you probably just do it all in one colour. If there's like a group of characters in the distance, you just do them all in one colour. And that was called a knockout. So when you just get a load of things, just knock it out in blue or knock it out in pale red or whatever. And Nell was a master of that, wasn't he? Yeah. Knockout Nell.
But I mean, I also think that was generally the way with Marvel.
Yeah.
It couldn't.
It wasn't laziness. It was a production line. Just had to get the books out.
Yeah, absolutely. But yes, it sounds sort of positively prehistoric now.
It does. Yeah.
But yeah, and so that was. I mean, you obviously Andrew started working on the UK comic. But the UK comic at that point went to the 5-page black and whites fairly quickly after.
Yeah.
And that was when I also started my run on Transformers US. And I won't bore people with the story again, but it was done very casually. And Bob Budiansky more or less just said, I'm slightly burned out. Do you want to take over? I had no idea whether he had the authority to give me the job, but I just took the job, sort of before he could reconsider. And there I was, lovely first time working for Marvel America, which had been the long-held dream.
A dream come true.
And then, as we went along, obviously started off, Jose Delbo was the artist, but gradually Jose couldn't do all the art, so I managed to import Jeff Senior to do fill-in issues at first. And then when we got to issue 68, it was supposed to be Andrew's first issue. I was very keen to get Andrew on board. Jose Delbo was leaving the book to do Brute Force, and so we needed a new artist. And it was the one time I butted heads with Don Daly, who was the editor, because I just thought, this is where we introduce Andrew into the mix. And we had samples from Andrew. Assistant editor Rob Tokar was very keen on that. Everything seemed set for it, and the issue was even written with Andrew in mind, being we introduced the Neo Knights, the sort of human superhero
team. The carpet was laid out for me to arrive.
And at which point Don Daly completely vetoed that and said he wanted Dwayne Turner to draw it, and I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I had no grounding for, thinking Dwayne Turner wouldn't do a great job, but I thought that you were a done deal on that. But, I don't think Dwayne's heart was in it. I think Don really wanted him to do it, but I think Dwayne really wanted to be doing Spawn, which he ended up doing, and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, he was great. He was good. His Black Panther work was great as well.
Yes, and so, that only lasted that one issue, and so I got my way with issue 69, and that was Andrew's debut. And in a way, it was good because it was the start of what became the Unicron saga.
Yeah, it was a perfect point to jump on board. Yeah, definitely. Just felt like the beginning of the next movie or something.
And it was a kind of quiet issue as well. It was all set up as the calm before the storm, and so it was very sort of small scale stuff happening until the very final page.
The very final page, which I've heard it a few times before, and somebody came up to me today we're talking about the Mega Ratch thing, the face on the cover of whichever issue it was. Was it 70?
70, yeah.
Yeah, the whole Mega Ratch thing. A lot of people, young people, we've kind of damaged them by the nightmares they had based on first seeing that cover. But that was a great issue for me to first jump on. It was quite slow build, and then to end up with something I could really get my teeth into, the design of essentially a new character, which is great. But that first page that I drew of issue 69, I can still vividly remember a piece of artboard on my drawing board, pencil, just thinking, this is it, this is Marvel America. Oh my God, everything's led to this, in my life. And it's like, I can't do it, It was just terrifying. Eventually I did, and it worked out all right,
But the other thing we found with the podcast is we keep reminding ourselves of things, because neither of our memories is great.
Yeah.
But someone will have that little fragment of recall, and it will go, oh, yeah, that's right. And Andrew mentioned when we were talking about issue 69 that you see, the story with the Mega Ratchet creature was that at the end of, I think it's issue 59, Ratchet runs Megatron through an active space bridge portal that's collapsing. So there is a sort of impact at the moment they disappear. And Andrew reminded me that was what he based the Mega Ratchet creature on, that this idea that Ratchet had more or less pushed through Megatron to become...
As if he was like jumping through him and got stuck halfway. So, okay, well, I'll go with that, which is why there's a leg, but then the other bit of leg sticks out the back. I mean, couldn't do that with the heads. They have to be together, but yeah, it almost have one character jumping through the other, and then they get melded together. It's brilliant. I love that.
Yeah, but now if you look at it, you can really see that was the idea behind it. But that's, again, working with an artist who was willing to go, oh, there, look, that was the impact point, so we really need to draw it like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can just write this stuff, and I just think, oh, well, he'll know how to draw it, and sure enough.
I was plotting out the arc as well. This is something I've said before, but with those first couple of issues where they were on the arc, and it kind of starts off in one room, and then there's some action that happens just outside the room or whatever. And I literally had a Post-it note where I just did a little sort of top-down plan view of what the room looked like that I'd got the characters in, just so as I knew how to draw it. Oh, right, so there's a desk over there, and there's a whatever, and then the door. And so it's like, oh, I need to get another Post-it note and draw the corridor, and they're going to go in that direction when they walk out. And so I started to plot out the arc with these Post-it notes, so that whenever I went back to a same location again, I knew how they all hooked up together, which you kind of don't need to do, but I was so into it and just getting some kind of continuity that and that kind of approach to things has played out in my storyboarding career now as well, because you need to be very aware of the spaces that people are in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the great thing with having Andrew on board with that American series is there's nothing a writer likes better than a consistency in terms of the artist, because I knew issue by issue that Andrew was going to be the artist, and that gives you a great freedom as a writer just to be able to let go of the reins a bit. You're always in fear of slightly a fill-in artist, and you've written it for a different artist. So, you haven't maybe been as detailed. I think I was talking about this morning in the panel, and I shouldn't say that because that puts it in a...
Oh, no.
Anyway.
You've ruined the timeline now,
I know,
Simon.
yeah. I've burst that bubble of...
Yeah.
So
we're recording this on 9th of August. Yeah. So in the morning of the 9th of August, Simon spoke to somebody about this thing.
Anyway, we'll leave that to your editing skills. And
okay.
And anyway, I mentioned that I try not to be too detailed in scripts. You want the artist to be a collaborative part of it. But it really helps if you know that it's, say, Andrew or Jeff or whoever's going to be drawing that. And then you can just relax and, be less detailed. So it was lovely to have that consistency. And really, you drew all the issues bar the double size 75.
Yeah, the big one, yeah. I didn't draw that one. Didn't have time as much as anything else.
No. I mean, it was needed. And, it was great. Jeff got to do what he does, which was
mass destruction.
He's
good at that. Yeah.
But it was a really good run, and it takes us back to these stories. I think still resonate, still have an audience, just because we were on a roll with them at the time. Yeah. We were engaged ourselves as creators. Yeah. As a team, as a creative team, and I think that's why, in some ways, without trying to blow our trumpets, they've stood the test of time, because we were just having fun. We were, in the moment with it. We're all capable of phoning it in sometimes, but
yeah, and whenever I did, you certainly let me know as an editor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
going back to the Christmas story, my first issue.
Yeah. Again, that's a story to be found in an earlier episode of the podcast. But yes, I had my editor's hat on because I had a dual role at the time, which I shouldn't really have had because Marvel frowned upon it, of being editor of the comic as well as the lead writer on the comic. And even though Richard Starkings would edit my scripts, I was sometimes called upon to, well, often, if the art came in and it wasn't right, I would be the one going through the artist with it. And apparently I became notorious in our little office for starting each conversation in this way. I would say, oh, you know, I absolutely love, oh, that's an amazing image you've got there. Brilliant, I love the way you've done this, blah, blah, blah. But, and then there would be this sort of long list of the but
parade
bit.
of criticism and
at which every point everybody in the office was sort of wincing because, but Andrew did a great job, and Stephen Baskerville did some backgrounds, as I remember, which were a little lacking.
So what Simon actually said was, on that phone call, he looked at it. So he did say, well, this bit's great, but, and it was like, well, there's not enough detail in here, and what we need to do is, maybe get some more background in there, like you really haven't done enough. And again, we were very young at the time, and I was sort of young, insecure artist, and I was like trying to defend what I'd done. So I said, yeah, but, trying to defend it. And then Simon paused and said, well, I suppose we could get Baskerville to save it. At which point I'm like, all right, okay, it's like that, is it? Yeah, leave it with me. So I did. But it was good. That was kind of part of learning, because obviously Simon had been in the industry longer than me. And it's like, okay, so I need to do that. I need to up my game. I need to make sure that some of those things are filled out a bit more. And then Baskerville didn't have to save it, but he certainly put the gloss on it. He, very much always did that.
And you did the very next issue. You did the first part.
I did better, did I?
You did. The first part of Time Wars was just, everything the promise of the covers had sort of said they would deliver. It was just, okay, great. There's everything we need here, can just go off to the inker. So it was a very temporary blip. But yeah, it's that was the thing about being an editor. Sometimes you have to, crack the whip a bit and generally, as like I say, I used to try and praise first and then criticise second, but...
And then praise again. It's what they call the shit sandwich.
We'll have to bleep that out.
Have to bleep that, will we?
Anyway, I think this is probably time, because we've waffled long enough,
what?
That we should ask some questions. We should ask
Are there any
questions
for our illustrious guests?
Yeah, right.
Oh, okay.
Somebody choose.
That was quick.
Choose, Simon.
No, I think the man with the microphone can choose.
Thank you very much. Andrew, on the podcast, you've talked about your love of cereal combinations. What is your most decadent cereal combination?
Oh, I don't know about decadent, but this is breakfast cereals, not like television cereals, but breakfast cereals. No, I don't know why. I just used to I still do it actually occasionally. So back in the day, Shreddies and Rice Krispies go well together. I don't know why, it's a texture thing. What are you laughing at? Oh, God, don't knock it till you've tried it. But more recently, there's a cereal come out called, what the hell is it called? Leslie, what's that cereal? It's called cereal, but it's spelt differently. Spelt like cereal, but it's called cereal.
Okay.
It's high protein cereal, but it's kind of like normal, like Cheerios, if you like, but in different flavors. So now I like muesli, but with the cinnamon cereal hoops. Try that one. As I said on the podcast, and it's true. I mean, at the time, back in the day when I was obsessed by breakfast cereal, I was going to write a book. Well, probably a pamphlet. I mean, a book wouldn't be possible. But I thought the world needs to know how you can combine cereals to great effect.
Yep, and this is the kind of stuff we diverge into, isn't it?
Yeah, the rest is giant robots, but the important stuff is breakfast cereal. Thank you for that question.
Hi. So this is quasi-related to comics, but because I personally want to be a writer in the future. But Do you have any specific tips about comic book writing?
In this day and age, do it is always the advice I give. Back in the day, it was very difficult to produce your own comics. These days, it's somewhat easier. You can tag team with an artist and produce a comic relatively cheaply, even if you put it up online or you just get it printed yourself. And I find that's the best way, is just to do it and have something to show people. Because as writers, it's very difficult to pitch to editors, to publishers, because they haven't got the time to sit and read. It's very, artists can take a portfolio or show their work, but a writer, it's very hard to do that unless you've produced something. So my advice is produce something. Get together with an artist. It doesn't have to be extensive, but show that you understand the form. Show that you can put together a cohesive 5-page, 6-page comic book story, and then it's something an editor can take away with them. Put your contact details on it, send it to them as a PDF. But yes, just produce is the advice I would give.
And I think if you can type with 3 or more fingers, you're ahead of the game.
Hi, but more of a general Transformers question, but I was curious, Simon, which character would kind of be your favourite to write, and Andrew, which would be kind of your favourite to draw?
Favourite character to draw? It's changed so many times over the years. Back in the day, it was always Galvatron, but that's more to do with the fact that Galvatron is a very kind of humanoid-looking character, with his form, there is kind of musculature, and there's a face and all those kind of things. So, because I wanted to move on to draw superhero books, as much as I love working on Transformers, I wanted to draw superhero books, so that's why I liked characters like Galvatron. When we were doing Regen, the character that I really liked drawing was Cup, but I think it's for exactly the same reason. There's certain aspects of him that are in these design ways quite similar to Galvatron, but he's really old. So I guess it was more appropriate for me to draw him, get a lined face. But seriously, it will always be Prime, always would be Optimus Prime, because I had to work really hard on Prime because he's got the face guard. And there's so much emotion in that character because he literally carries the weight of everything on his shoulders. So to get the torment in his eyes sometimes, I really had to develop a way of getting a lot of emotion in very few lines. And just from having to work on that so much, he just became the go-to character who also kind of represents everything that's positive about Transformers. So ultimate analysis, Optimus Prime.
I would say I'm wearing my Many Moods of Optimus Prime t-shirt, which always used to make me chuckle when I used to write Prime is furious, Prime is sad, it's just a narrowing of the eyes or a slight upturn of the visible
If I
eye.
did a version of that, nobody would get the joke, would they?
Yeah, no. And my character to write, I'm going to skip past Grimlock because everybody knows I like writing Grimlock, but the characters that grew on me were characters like Nightbeat and Bludgeon, and I always liked the ones that had less in the way of text about them, so I could add layers, I could kind of make them mine a little bit, because the original ones Bob had done, chapter and verse on, but some of the later ones, I think they were more or less just a couple of lines. So it left me wriggle room to add layers to those characters. But Nightbeat I loved because I love detective fiction, and I could just make him my little private eye detective character.
So the characters that didn't have much of a write-up in terms of their character that you then fleshed out, did other people pick up on your expansion of that character when they wrote it?
Maybe. Yeah. I think Thunderwing had next to nothing of a bio when I adopted the character and made him into kind of one of the main Decepticon big bads. And I guess it was just, if I looked at the toys, it could be off-putting because Bludgeon was quite a puny little toy, and I don't think Thunderwing was huge. So, I tried just to think grandiose with those characters.
Right, we have time for one very quick question.
Where are we going to go?
Right. Coke or Pepsi?
We might have time for another question. Neither. No.
Yeah, Sprite.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, please put your...
Yeah. And can we just say one more thing when we just before we wrap up? So. Okay.
What was your favourite Transformers storyline to write?
I think it was anything involving Unicron was a big plus for me because I remember being blown away by the animated movie the first time I saw it and just thinking that's my kind of monster character. And, so anything I could, immediately I could lace him into the UK storyline I did. One of the second things I did on the US comic was to bring Unicron into that. And it just felt like that was the kind of stories I wanted to write. Grand space operas along the lines of a Galactus or some other sort of cosmic threat. So, yeah, I think anything to do with Unicron I've enjoyed. And, things like, we'll talk about Energon on the panel tomorrow, but I loved working on Energon because we had free reign with Unicron and all that mythos.
Cool. So what were we going to
Yes, so we're just going to say that I know we haven't had time for many questions, but we do take questions on the podcast. Okay. You can contact us via the Patreon home of The Rest is Giant Robots. Leave your questions there. And we did one whole episode that was just listener questions. So please engage with us on the podcast. And we will do another question session very soon.
Yeah, we will. And if you want to get to the podcast, the easiest way is wildfur.net.
So, ladies and gentlemen, with that said, please put your hands together for the wonderful duo that is Simon Furman and Andrew Wildman.
Thank you for listening to The Rest is Giant Robots. If you enjoyed what you heard, please consider subscribing for more and maybe share with like-minded friends. This has been a Wildfur production.